Welcome to I Was Told There'd Be Whiskey. This is the very first ever episode of the podcast produced by the Bourbon Van YouTube channel. My name is Phil. Of course, this being a Bourbon Van product, something had to go wrong, even on our very first episode. In this instance, our main microphone became disconnected during setup. Fortunately, we had a camera set up that did catch all of the audio. Unfortunately, the camera was not set up in the greatest location. So, for those of you who are watching this on a visual medium, you're going to have to pretend that you're a fly on the wall in this one because you're definitely looking on from the corner of the barrel room. And for those of you who are not watching this on a visual medium, know that you're not missing anything at all. During our travels and road trips, we meet fascinating people all the time with great stories to tell. And on this podcast, we're going to share a whiskey with our guests and hear some of those stories. And this is definitely one of those episodes that we were eager to share with you. So even though it doesn't have the highest quality audio, we think the conversation itself is worthwhile. Today's episode was meant to be a discussion of Steve McCarthy's life and legacy. Steve passed away recently, and he was a longtime friend and mentor to Joseph O'Sullivan, who is the head distiller of Clear Creek Distillery in Hood River, Oregon. By the time I finished setting up my equipment, distiller Garrett Trotter and Joe O'Sullivan and Julie, also from the Bourbon Van, were already in the middle of an interesting conversation. And this episode is fully unedited, so you're going to hear all of the hisses and bangs and compressor noises that you would typically hear in a working distillery. And let's pick up this conversation already in progress.
Like super smart people, like doing formulas and you like the stuff that you can't even fathom to like understand. You're just like, oh, that's why we like this stuff so much. Like, and you're cool people. You're like not like super scientists.
But the problem is that if you, in every distillery is a little different, and I'll agree to that there's some places that are just pure science driven.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could exist in one of those very happily. There has to be a good balance between being in the lab in that aspect, as well as the getting dirty, repairing stills, really being willing to do the physical mechanical part of it. And one of the things I like most about Clear Creek is that, for better or worse, the need to be scrappy has left us as rather engineer-minded biologists a lot of the time. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the people who've stayed at Clear Creek the longest all have a degree in science of one form or another. Yeah. But we also all either come from backgrounds that are rather trade-oriented or have that direct experience ourselves. Yeah. Because I don't know if you, especially in the way that we run shop here, that you could do very well if you weren't willing how to sweat copper, how to repair a pump, how to rewire things. And that's just always been something that we've been a part of, is that aspect of machining and rebuilding.
Yeah, you gotta be able to get your hands dirty, and want to, not just do it, but want to do it and understand the process.
And I mean, looking back on, whenever you were interviewing with me and some of the questions in which you asked me too, it all starts to kind of make sense now, right? Because you were asking about my background, and what it is, and I had worked in a production facility, and I mean, I was the quality control person there, but we were making medical diagnostic kits, but I was working with machines, because we were packaging up, and so it was it all starts to make sense whenever you get here and you're actually neck deep in whatever it is we're doing out here at all times, and it's I was a little bit green on some things, as far as repair, but I mean I feel so much more confident just in my abilities in doing that over the past year than anything else too, and that's just it's just getting my hands on things and kind of just.
Right from the beginning, you were the ideal candidate. There wasn't really a second choice for me. You weren't just the right on paper. You were the right in terms of personality, and you get that combination only a couple of times. It's you, Caitlin, a few others I've come across.
Well, I mean, from the layperson, you think, oh, it's just somebody pouring liquid into a barrel. Or something, right? There's probably some some algorithm doing all the things and whatever, and so I think that's what's been so fun about just meeting you guys and then going to distilleries and learning a little bit more. It's oh no, it's not just a a scientific number that we figured out a long time ago that makes the perfect whatever. It's like the humans, the very smart humans behind like the process who are passionate and then also like want to like get their hands dirty and do the work.
Getting back to like the interview, I remember one of the questions that you and Caitlin both asked me was like as far as like if you were to get this job, how would you approach it? Would you go science or art? And I was like, man, because like I'm so science minded, right? Like that's how I've grown up. That was my degree. That's what I was focused on. But yeah, it's like there's this cohesion between like science and like art of like putting something in the barrel and letting it kind of do its own thing and run its own course. That science plays a part in for sure, but at the end of the day, like it's equal parts art, equal parts science, and it's like I understand that so much more now. That it's like it's like I can know all the science in the world, but at the end of the day, like once this liquid goes in that barrel, it's like it's just up to whatever happens, and that's how it is, So yeah, it's really interesting to kind of like parse that and think about that for sure.
Yeah.
When I was in college, I had the opportunity to book Stephen Jay Gould for a speech, and he asked me what he should talk about. And after a bit of a conversation, the opportunity was: do we talk about evolution and science, or do we talk about something else? Mm-hmm. And I chose art. Mm-hmm. And so one of the most renowned scientists of our era gave a long talk about the importance of art. Mm-hmm. And it was because entirely the biggest resentment I had towards my college years was really this sense that people had that they were drawing lines, that the science kids thought the English majors had the easy life, and the English majors thought that the science kids were binary drones. And what I really wanted to show them was just how myopic and mirror-viewed they were. Because what bothered me the most is this concept that science is not a creative field. It's an extremely creative field. You're given a problem, you give a solution, and then you have to prove it. Mm-hmm. That's a step of creativity to ask questions and demands that you don't typically get. Yeah. And to me, it is a really beautiful thing that we get to now push for that in our industry, the one that you and I are in currently, Garrett. Because when you taste something like this, there's a reason and there's a vague concept of how to reproduce it, but the one thing you can't introduce is the chaos that happens with age. Now, recently I was talking to a neighbor friend of mine, and he had asked me, while discussing kind of the different changes that we've come across in the last 3 months with AI and how it's, in a very short period of time, like we've watched hours and hours of unlimited steam, which is just an AI generated version of the steamed hams bit from The Simpsons. We watch that a lot here. We watch it a lot. Way too much. And so I'm really glad that AI immediately we used it for comedy. Good for us.
Like, at least they didn't Will Smith kill us. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Whatever that.
No. Only Simpsons jokes is the only thing we went for. But, so in that limited window of about the last 3-4 months where AI is starting to actually have an interesting factor in our lives, and how we're using it is actually, in my opinion, kind of positive. I like the humor aspect of it. I did talk to a neighbor and he said, well, what, do you think your job would be produced by AI? And I said, no, I think we have one of the ones that's kind of insulated. And he said, well, computers can make good whiskey. It's like, yeah, but that's not the commodity. The commodity that people buy when they buy a bottle of McCarthy's is not the whiskey. They're buying the commodity of the people who make it. And that's the influence that we have that cannot be reproduced because it's hard to describe. You can balance it down to a liquid, but that's still going to take out the one factor that can't be brought in, which is with our Oloroso blend, is a really good example. Garrett designed the blend for that. And you designed the blend for that because Caitlin and I have developed, in many regards, house palate, where our selections are so complementary that we don't diverge very much. And that will happen to you too. It's a natural thing that happens. But you came in with the good sense of balance, and you were able to design a blend that complemented the Oloroso finish that I never would have done. And it's that sense of the human instinct to want to introduce variety, because that's part of what we do by design. It's like a genetic urge that I think keeps this industry unique in many, many ways. Because even with AI art, and I say this with a very shamefully general sense, we're looking for visual appeal, and there will always be a visual appeal to that. With something like whiskey, it's going to be a little bit harder because people are always looking for variety and selection rather than a specific style that lasts.
Well, I was going to say, I agree with that because the thing that Phil and I always discuss is, for me, it's about the experience of drinking the whiskey. And that can go either way. It could be like a super positive, like this was an amazing experience, or it could be like, whoa, I never need to drink that again. And that's hard to replicate. Like that kind of experience. Like the whiskey could be solid. Like on paper, it could all be perfection, right? But the enjoyment or the flavor, like whatever it is, we're all so different as humans. So it's like, my palate is super different than Phil's, yours, Garrett's, like everybody's, right? And so that is something hard to like nail down.
Well, speaking of, everybody's palates and the experience, we are currently in the barrel room at Clear Creek Distillery here in Hood River, Oregon, and we are with 2/3 of the Clear Creek team. We have Joe McCarthy here. We have Garrett here.
Joe McCarthy?
Not Joe McCarthy. Well, I think of you as only Joe McCarthy.
I was like,
Joseph is so
I got some like real hard fascist energy.
What turned out, you've got a brand new nickname because you are McCarthy's to me. But you are McCarthy's to me because this brand, I really had no familiarity with it before I met you. I knew about the bourbons that you made and some of the other products here, the brandies and things like that. But McCarthy's as a product was very new to me when I met you. And the way that you spoke about it, from producing this whiskey, from making this whiskey, from learning what you did from Steve McCarthy, and Steve, who has just recently passed, and we know that he had such a huge hand and may have been the first American single malt distiller, and really what he did set the groundwork for so much of what the whiskey world has become, and that's what's so special about not only where we're at right now, but what we're enjoying right now.
So a podcast, because it's the perfect visual medium, I do want to direct our eyes to this beautiful color that we have here. And Garrett, you probably have the best light. Julie, you as well.
Yeah.
What do you think of this color? I have the most shades, so I'm not going to describe it.
I've got like a beautiful like garnet. It just seems rich and full, but the red really strikes me.
Yeah. It's
just like you can see the barrel presence in this.
Yeah, there's a viscosity, but it's also too like equal parts. Like it's there's this beautiful just like cohesion of all those different all those different colors that you just laid out. Like it just it all just kind of sits and makes this super special.
So Garrett, considering that we are also trying to sell our product, is this a specific bottle that anyone would be able to get?
No.
Okay, because this is in fact a particularly old bottle of
Correct.
McCarthy's.
Correct.
Yeah,
yes.
this is so for everyone else. I'm sorry, this is only for us in here. But I think considering the fact that we're going to be discussing Steve McCarthy, it's only apropos that we get something very unique and something that's worthwhile. So. While I'm not typically allowed into this barrel, this is in fact the oldest barrel of McCarthy's we have, and we each have about 3/4 to an ounce pour of this. It's knocking on 13, 14 years now. I greatly find this to be a lovely, lovely selection. And I don't get into it except for maybe once every 2 years for very special occasions. And any sort of... I haven't gotten into it since he died. So I'm very happy to share it with you now.
The smell, it's not just the barrel room. The nose on this alone is insane.
Yeah.
It's one of the most incredible and unique noses on a whiskey I've ever experienced.
I feel like, well, for me, this needs a proper cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for
Cheers.
having us.
Cheers.
Thank you for sharing your stories. Oh, it's just incredible. Like, the smokiness. It's almost subtle in what you know it should be. Like you're expecting this like punch of like the single malt flavor, that's aroma, like all of that. It's just, it smells beautiful. I know that's like silly, but
it's elegant. There's no brashness.
And I don't know if that's just because of what we're going to be chatting about today, or
Well, I mean, there was only brashness in Steve McCarthy. He was a giant in many ways. I mean, not just as a figure in my own personal life, but you just took your sip.
Oh my!
I'm going to stop what I was saying. I want to hear what you think.
I'm almost speechless. Like, it was a moment. Like, I really felt a moment. Like, I knew what I was going to expect. I like the McCarthy's brand. I like what we've had from it before. This feels special.
Yeah.
It feels elevated. It feels like love in a glass. I know that's so silly.
It's not.
And it's not, I mean, and we're talking about something completely different than like what we normally chat about, right, on this channel. But like, it's a single malt, and there's all that like, almost like that Scottish influence. Like there's like the peatiness and the smokiness. But for some reason there's a sweetness in here and a care in this sip.
It's extremely cohesive to the point of being less about tasting notes and more about experience.
I have a hard time describing this one.
It's tough. Like I took that sip, and I don't know if it's just being, who knows what it is. Being here with friends and but it actually took my breath away a second. Like I felt happy to be in this moment.
I have never had the pleasure of meeting Steve McCarthy. But like this right here just makes me feel like we are like close, and we are like here. Like I don't know, like there's something about McCarthy's which like each and every like iteration that we have of it has its own like unique quality to it. But it's always like there's this heart of what makes McCarthy's tick, and that's what it is. And the essence of that is in this, and it's just like pushed to the forefront, and it's really special to me to be able to kind of experience this because I feel like this is what Steve set out to do whenever he wanted to make the first American Single Malt was this,
It's a single malt that hits, and this is probably, if I had to gather, probably around 117 or so. Mm-hmm. This particular barrel is a single malt that has all of the richness and finish of fountain soda, cola. It has that deep syrupy richness without any of the sugar. So it's all of the nut, it's all of the bean. And while it's a peated American single malt, the peat itself has left and purified almost into a new substance, flavor-wise, because in the sense that peat is an evolution to a new process, eventually leading into coal and oil and all the changes that happen over time. This feels like a microcosm of that experience. And that's why I find the older expressions to McCarthy's, and we will, breaking news for you guys, eventually be releasing a 12-year, which we already are starting to save up for.
Wow.
I don't think we've talked about that today.
No, that's
very excited.
That is an exclusive for this moment.
Yeah, but it's like it's like 4 years from now.
Yeah.
So
okay, we can be patient.
But you get that deeper sense of like true loveliness in this, and kind of going along with what you were saying about the sweetness that's kind of hidden inside of it, because the initial impact is big, and then it just immediately reduces in the same way, in my opinion, that like balsamic reduces into a different thing.
Yeah.
This is that similar transformation. And Steve was very much like that. He was this big, at times, aggressive man who I adored. And for as curmudgeon-y as he was, I never for a moment felt in any way uncared for. Mm-hmm. And so a whiskey by nature being aggressive, impactful, and loud, still what you said that it tastes of care, is the best expression that we can give to honor his name, because he was the manifestation of whiskey. He was the manifestation of American Single Malt. He was an aggressive, big personality. When done right, never showed you anything but love and concern and care. And he gave me so much of those things. His passing hit everyone here hard, but the day he passed, I think I stayed here until about 8:30 at night. I just couldn't go home. And I missed him, and I still do. Very much.
And so going back into his history is incredible, because 1986?
85.
85 was when he was sort of just, it was more than exploration. He was already digging in, doing his thing here, and you came on the scene
2005.
2005. So his experience is really the story of American Single Malt. It's a history that's deeper than most American Single Malt histories. Is there any other brand that you can think of that even comes close to that age?
We're members of the American Single Malt Commission. We first released McCarthy's in 1996, first distilled in 1991. I was very, company-wise at least, famously anti-claims to be the first American Single Malt. I didn't really think it was a important claim. The liquid is what matters. It doesn't really matter who's first. I think we're good, but the first it's a nice little shiny button to put on your nice coat, and that's about it. That being said, as the American Single Malt movement has gone and grown, and as we've gotten more and more attention for quality, it's a nice thing to remind people of. And we've done every bit of research we can to prove ourselves wrong as being the second or third or fifth or whatever. We've even gotten as far as to get Adam Polonsky, formerly of Whiskey Advocate, to do a deep dive, and he, in his own words, said, "I believe McCarthy's to be the first American Single Malt." So I'm not saying that we are 100%. I am saying that we are 99.9%. If somebody shows up, I will gladly give them the crown of being first. It still won't change the love and respect that we put into this whiskey, because it's never been about the first. It's always been about the opportunity and the training and the mentorship we experienced. And that idea of mentorship is the heart and soul of Clear Creek, and how we respect each other, what we do for each other, and how we make each other grow. Sometimes forcefully, but never without the concept of support within each other. As the current captain of the ship, I am famously obnoxious about just being like, "You go do this thing you're uncomfortable with." Garrett, how was YouTube today?
It was something. But yeah, no, absolutely. But no, it's a testament to who you are and how you run this place. And
You're mistaken in that. It's a testament to the qualities of you and Caitlin and Dwight and Sophie and anyone who's worked here for the efforts that they put in. It's just really easy to recognize those things because of the quality of the people that I get to work with. So, it's all on you guys. But Steve was the first for that. And as much as that, Clear Creek, third craft distillery in the United States, Steve was the first American-born craft distiller. And I only say that not because I think it's anything unique, but because both the folks from St. George and Jermaine, why can't I remember the name right now? Robert. Oh my gosh, so embarrassed. I did it in reverse order. Steve didn't grow up making schnapps in the same way that Hubert and York did, and so Jermaine Robin. Sorry.
Yeah, Jermaine Robin. Yep.
That they grew up with it as part of their culture. Steve did not, and so there is some kind of interesting aspects in adopting and appropriating another culture, but still trying to make it distinctly about his own family, which were a bunch of Orchardists. he was also, he never really cared who he hired in terms of what they looked like. I was trained by a woman named Rachel Inman, who I would love to see anyone prove me differently that she was the first female craft distiller. She was distilling in 1992. She trained me how to do cuts. I will never forget that day, and how Rachel was the one to show me how to do heads, hearts, and tails cuts. And that is the backbone of what we do here. None of that stuff ever mattered to Steve. I don't think he was trying to do anything unique or progressive. I just don't think he really gave a flop. And it was like, if you could do the job, you could do the job, and that was all that mattered to him. And that sentiment of you support the person and not the demographic or or how, was the biggest deal to him. I'm really proud to be part of his legacy and to carry on in the ways that I can, and to share this with you guys now, because this to me is still one of the finer things that we've ever made, and considering this would have been 13 years ago, so right around the time that I took my short leave from Clear Creek, I made this.
So this is a Joe O'Sullivan special.
It would have been me or Daniel Ruiz or Emily or Rachel or Elizabeth or Ryan, someone in there. Or probably all of us, to be honest with you. It probably was a number of us all working together on this.
Allow me to say something you probably already know, but you and that group could certainly make some good whiskey.
Oh, thank you. We're still friends. Unbelievably, I mean, I still talk to Elizabeth on occasion about books, and Emily about art, and Ryan about baby llamas. He likes cute animals. And Daniel is actually still in the game. So there's a lot of kind of heritage that goes along with this. And Nick as well. Nick went into Breakside, and now he's doing a lot of the bottle recycling stuff that you see being spearheaded within Oregon. There's a very phenomenal group of people that have walked through our doors, and the reason to be proud of Clear Creek is the people, and second to that, the whiskey.
Well, speaking one last time about the whiskey is the idea that we have seen a major step in just governmental accommodation of this style of single malt American whiskey in the past year. And I know that that's majorly due to the American Single Malt Whiskey Association. Commission, there you go, which has been working very, very hard on creating this momentum for this type of whiskey. And we see that it's become something that, in our opinion, that we can be very proud of as a type of whiskey, and recognizing where we've come from and where we're going on that. How big of a deal is that to you for the McCarthy's brand, or is it a major validation, or does it not really matter because you're already creating something you're so proud of?
It's a major validation. It legitimizes everything we've done, and while I think McCarthy's, the quality wouldn't change whether there was an American single malt movement or not, we would still be making the best whiskey we could. The fact that there could be some sort of federal recognition as it being something protected as a classification within the boundaries of the United States is a huge deal. And to represent the first and still one of the more higher regarded versions of that is huge. The second part is far more important. The interesting thing that's coming about it, though, is really what's going to be happening in the future. And people who've seen me talk have heard me say this before, and I don't want it to be misinterpreted as throwing any sort of shade on bourbon, but in 10 years, bourbon's going to still be bourbon. Mm-hmm. It's not really going to change a lot. And that's fine. It's well established and it's very good. But in 10 years from now, given the freedom of design that is allowed under American Single Malt, as well as the basic geography of the United States, the sense of terroir and the reflection of the American landscape that you see, or that you will see in American Single Malts, is going to be unlike anything that's expressed in the world. So one of the key parameters as definition for American Single Malt is that there should not be, one of the key parameters as definition for American Single Malt is that there should be no minimum age statement. And that's very purposeful. And it was largely kind of made in consideration of places like Balcones. Jared there does incredible work. I mean, what a cool guy. Oh, yeah, right? Like, just amazing. Balcones.
Yeah, they're saying all this something special.
Yeah. Just like, so inspiring. Yeah. And the difficulties, though, of making whiskey in Waco, Texas is like, that's a big deal. And it's hot there. Like, it's always hot there. I hate the heat. Whiskey hates heat, too.
Yeah.
And so if we were to say there has to be a minimum age of 3 years, then what the return on that barrel is going to be very small, and it's probably not going to be the whiskey that they want. And that's just key to the understanding of how this will design terroir within the United States. And so when you have areas from Juneau, Alaska, down, or Fairbanks, Alaska, down to Waco, Texas, from Maine down to Colquhoun, the spirits, Colin doing amazing stuff. So you go like, I mean, how about 888 on in Nantucket? Like just the notch, the best American single malt that I know of that doesn't get enough attention. You have this just giant geography, and that will show in the whiskey. Where American Single Malt will be in 10 years will only be the beginning. We're not even at the foundation. We've just barely dug the pit that the basement will be erected in. Yeah. Like we are so early on still. So for me, I consider this to be a unique experience, not just in my life, but in the opportunities that professionals across careers could possibly have to be representative of the first of a new type of spirit within a country is huge. And because this country, because of its geography, can offer things that Scotland, which is, I mean, how many Scotlands can you put into Texas? like at least 3 or 23. I don't know.
Yeah,
like a lot of Scotlands. Exactly. I don't know how big Scotland is. Yeah. It's not as big as Texas.
Totally. It's quite a deal.
And to have the variation that they have between Highland, Speyside, Isla, et cetera, magnify that. And initially, American Single Malt is still going to be clunky. We are still going to be a little like hit and miss. Yeah. And I think, but the important thing is that everybody is really experimental, and we're all figuring out how to use our resources. And whether it's mesquite smoked, whether it's Oregon oak cask, whether it's the first or the 102nd, it doesn't matter. Like, we are all reflecting something unique, and the environment is going to shape it more than anything. So I can't tell you how cool it is to be part of this. And it's really, while McCarthy's may have been the first, we are certainly not the most important members of the commission. We are active, but a lot of this goes down to Steve Hawley, formerly of Westland, and the current people at Westland as well. It's going to Christian Krogstad at Westward, Colin at Colquhoun, Steve and Mark at Santa Fe. I mean, Randy at AAA, and down the line. I can't keep everyone in my mind, but I cannot thank them enough for their efforts.
Well, it is really something to recognize that you are a pioneer on the American Single Malt Road, and it makes perfect sense that you are squarely seated on the Oregon Trail. And
it is ironic.
Yeah.
A little bit. But I just want to ask if there's anything else when it comes to American Single Malt whiskey for whiskey drinkers to keep in mind, specifically maybe bourbon drinkers to keep in mind, because it is a new world for a lot of us that we're just discovering.
I'm just going to interject and say that don't expect it to taste like bourbon.
Yeah,
certainly.
So that's the thing that always trips me up, is it's like, oh, it doesn't taste like, it's not supposed to, right?
No, it's never supposed to. It's a different grain. It's different ingredients.
Totally. And Phil grabbed that and was like, this is my new flavor, or this is my new thing. Like,
I've gravitated hard.
Yeah.
Partly because I love the craft,
the
and creative idea
and,
of it, the earthy flavors, the terroir of it. That's fascinating to me.
To me, it feels like this. What I'm drinking right now we talked about this.
It's amazing.
It's more than amazing. It is special. Like, it has the flavors that you think. There's no rough edges. It does feel like care and love. It makes me want to talk quieter. Like, it just, feels something different in this drink than any of the single malts that I've had. Because I've had some great single malts, and I've had some single malts that I was like, I'm never drinking this again, like ever. And this feels like something I don't ever want to finish this glass. Like, I want to, if there's 2 sips left, I want to put it on a shelf and like revisit that in 5 years or something. Like one of those situations. That's just my 2 cents, sorry. I just kind of went off the rails there. I'm excited about this.
I mean,
yeah.
It makes me want to talk quieter. Might be one of the. That resonates with me, and I can't understand why, but I agree with you. It hits in the right place, and I agree. It's like the spirit itself seems to have so much in it that you want to be mindful and cognizant of how you describe it, as if it could hear you.
I 100% agree. Like, it feels like you're enveloped in this sip in a way that, like, whatever you say in this moment is going to be branded, like, on a barrel as you said this, right? Like, so you want to be, like, really mindful. You said mindful, like, you do. You want to be really mindful of what you're thinking about, and all I get out of this is joy.
It's been a lot of love put into it.
Yeah.
But to backtrack a little bit on one thing that I think is also important for American people curious about American Single Malt. Don't expect it to taste like bourbon. 100%. Also, don't expect it to taste like Scotch.
100%, yes.
It is a new thing.
Yeah.
And while McCarthy's, because it is the first, and when you're the first of something, it's really easy to be the first. It's nothing to hang your hat on. I'm saying that as the master distiller of the first American Single Malt, it's not a big deal to be
You're expecting people to go above you at some point.
Well, you're also just like, when you're the first, it implies there's not a lot of competition. Like, it's low-hanging fruit. Like, it's great that you're the first. Keep on delivering a good product.
Exactly.
Is all that matters. So, like I said, the first is a nice shiny button that you wear on your coat. That's about it. But when you're also early on in something, you tend to be the bridge. And McCarthy's was always established to be the bridge. Would this be considered a Scotch? No, I don't think a lot of people would be like, oh, that's very obviously from this, area of Scotland. I don't think anyone. I think they might be like, is this from an area of Scotland I don't know about? Maybe.
Right.
But it is distinctively American in many ways. It still spans the Atlantic and everything that followed. And I believe the second would be St. George Single Malts. And that's for you, Lance and Dave. Love you guys. And they do great stuff.
Yeah.
And I believe that they're the second. Theirs is uniformly more distinct from your typical Scotch single malts. And I think that that's the natural progression, and I think it's how it should be. Yeah. And then when you move further and further down the line, you eventually get into things, once again, to bring up St. George, like Baller. Baller is wild and unique and daring, and one of the coolest things about it is a conglomeration of different flavors. So you have ume plums, the barrels that they age the wine in, and then you add in the barley, and then you do an American Single Malt. And because the one thing that I wish, not to get too political here, that I wish that people remembered was the coolest thing about our country is that we are all many different types of people, and that is distinct and unique within the globe.
Yeah.
I personally find that to be so cool, and we will start to see that within American Single Malt, the influence of other cultures, the influence of other things.
Right.
And that's something that will never come out of Japanese Single Malt, and it will never come out of Scottish Single Malt. Australian Single Malt I don't know enough about, but I don't know it will ever be the same as it is here. And so I really expect to see good things as people from different areas of the country and from different cultures grow and make it their way. It should all be celebrated, and we should all give it We should all talk to the people who make it and be like, why did you make this? Why does it taste this way? I don't understand this yet. I'm going to take a second and listen to you describe it to me. It's worth it. And we will have a better, more unique classification of whiskey, and one that, I am not joking, I think will change how the rest of the globe makes whiskey, if we embrace it.
So that's our conversation with Joseph O'Sullivan and Garrett Trotter of Clear Creek Distillery. A huge thanks to them for spending their day with us, and from wherever we are to wherever you are, cheers.